Welcome to Adam Land, an unsettling reflection of a flawed world staring straight back at us. This is a world that demands response from its audience. A world where humanity's dirty laundry is aired, leaving its subjects stripped to its underpants. Where pain is expunged through pathos and humour, rather than ridicule. Where identity is begrudgingly glimpsed through failure and ugliness. But this is not simply a middle finger salute to the bourgeois. Adam Cullen expels an unbearable pity for humankind. A reactionary observation of all its lack and loss in a rudderless journey of supposed meaningless existence. Through all that brash and abrupt application, we can find the artist's sensitivity and honesty, expressing his own grave doubts about himself and the world around him. Ashley Crawford described Adam Cullen as a whirlwind of contradictions. He seduces and repels, both on canvas and in the flesh, in equal measure. Here is a painter whose sense of line, whose dexterity with colour is undeniable, but who savages the outcome with vicious drips of uncontrolled paint. An artist who can render the female nude with sensual and erotic potential, and then fill the sinuous lines with a repugnant, rotting, toxic green.
I sort of tend to mix things together on a flat, almost filmic picture plane, so that there sort of is this concentration on the individual figures as elements. I don't really know what they are, I just know where they've come from, and there's a feeling about them when it's completed, you know, inside the boundaries of that flat, formal plane. They tend to sort of take on another lifetime or something after you take them out of their context and you put them into Adam Land. They sort of, it's kind of like that expression, when hell is full, the dead will walk. So they sort of have another chance through art.
No stranger to controversy, Adam Cullen has been branded and labelled in many ways. As the art world wrestles with his exploration and provocation, the so-called bad boy of the Sydney art scene, the enfant terrible, Adam Cullen has poked and squeezed the festering wound of human despair, much to the chagrin of many of the art world and their uncomfortable reaction to his subjects and execution. But then, Cullen is a provocateur, holding both a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Fine Arts. Distant ripples of Adam Land began during his studies, when he chained a rotting pig's head to his leg and dragged it around for several weeks until the putrefied skull fell apart. He soon found further fame through the grunge movement of the early 90s, before sealing his own infamy with the illustration of a children's book in collaboration with Mark Chopper Reed, titled Hookie the Cripple. But it was the conquering of one of Australia's most conservative art prizes that truly announced Adam Cullen into the mainstream.
Adam Cullen has won this year's painting.
Having very nearly won the Archibald in 1999, Adam returned with a portrait of David Wenham in 2000, taking all before him.
The Archibald was awfully good to win. I mean, I was absolutely flattered. I didn't expect it. It didn't mean much before, but after I won it did, and as time passes it actually means less.
That Adam polarises his audiences is an understatement. While for many the Archibald Award of 2000 opened the doors to a more contemporary approach, it was also met with a visceral reaction from many of the art world's more conservative realm, spilling a good deal of outrage into the newspaper columns. Adam, quoting Bob Ellis,
"This could have been painted by a kindergarten child. Way. And was probably painted in 20 minutes. No, it only took 10.
A really common response to Adam's work is this objection about how much time it's taken him to make the work. Yet this criticism overlooks the fact that he's an extremely diligent artist. He spent hours getting to know David Wenham, talking to him about his role in the movie The Boys before painting the portrait. Adam's skill is not in rendering every pore, rather his work functions like a flash of insight, and for this reason rapid execution is the most practical form of expression for him. It's interesting to note how a bad boy grunge artist doesn't just win the Archibald Prize with a painting that's come out of thin air. And again, we see this tenacious side of Adam. He systematically entered the prize for 3 years before winning, and in doing so really showed the judges that he was serious. A lot of people say that Adam became a member of the art establishment when he won the Archibald. I think the whole aspect of his practice where he enters art prizes is aligned with his celebration of the Australian male larrikin spirit, to go in and have a gamble and have a go. And for this reason, it really suits Adam as an artist to continue entering art prizes.
Often portrayed as the Hunter S. Thompson of the art world, the elevated persona of Adam Cullen, the man, has been built around a collage of macho mystique. And yet, amidst the tangled wreckage of human pain ensconced within his canvases, the contemporary male in all his bravado is debunked and exposed to a hopeless reality, lost in an expired world of despair and mindless violence.
Well, men in Adam's life are interesting. They are macho men, and they're not necessarily men that women love to adore. They can be bastards, they can be wife bashers and beaters. But Adam's not necessarily trying to dispel the myth of the macho man, because even though he portrays Ned Kelly and the Kelly gang as cross-dressers and exposes their feminine side, which they were, it's the truth. And Adam's always said that endurance is more important than the truth. So he lives in a macho world. He's a hunter himself. But not only does he portray the gun-slinging, cigarette in the mouth macho image of sort of the American Western or the Australian macho man, but he also gives them a bullet up the arse. So it's like a conundrum. It's like a perspective, seeing it from both sides. So what you're getting is you're getting the macho man, but you're also getting him with all these foibles, and that's what harks back to Loserville, because most these macho images that he portrays, they're up there beating their chest like King Kong. But in actual fact, when the camera stops rolling or when the spotlight's off, they're cowering in the corner like a dog that's had the shit kicked out.
Indeed, it is his study of national and gender identity, of racial intolerance, bigotry, sexism and political and social hypocrisy that gave rise to a place called Loserville. But the inhabitants of Loserville are not his creation, but a reaction to the apparent information overload that surrounds us, a reflection of the lack and loss that construct a person's environment.
I suppose my work is directly related to my experience in everyday existence. I mean, I've always seen my work as kind of like a document of that direct and intimate exposure to information overload. So most of my work comes from that white noise of the everyday.
Well, Loserville's it's an important part of Adam's life and his paintings. All around us we are confronted by disasters, natural disasters, murders, the underbelly of society. So what he does is he populates his canvas with low culture, bizarre human figures, macabre alien creatures with dripping extremities, gun-toting mummies, decapitated kangaroos, headless women, images of dead cats and the sexual exploits of goats. It's brought about through his excitement with pain. He's in pain a lot himself. He's been in and out of hospital for years and years, and he basically puts that pain down on his canvas. Now, not everything that he paints is pain, but that's what he calls his Loserville.
There's a lot of people or characters that occupy my images of that kind of nature, They're sort of either freaks, outsiders politically or socially, in some sort of incarceration, external or internal. Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of interested in ethics and wrong and right and that enormous mid-grey tone between those two extremes.
In the 2004 Cullen monograph, Scars Last Longer, Ingrid Perez wrote, "Dead cats, bloodied roos, inflatable men and headless women. Adam Cullen likes to conjure up the elements of a place called Loserville, pipe in some lounge music and depart the scene, but not for anywhere better."
I depict human forms and animals in various stages of physical and psychological trauma, or psycho-decomposition, I suppose you could call it. I mean, it's often not pretty, but often ugliness can be very, very funny too.
Adam was invited to participate in a controversial exhibition at Penrith Regional Gallery called Anita and Beyond. For this exhibition, his large, unnerving portraits of the perpetrators of the murder of Anita Cobby are based on mugshots. John Travis, the ringleader, is depicted in iridescent pinks and yellows, whilst the others are in more muted greys. I find this John Travis portrait extremely moving. The red in his face insinuates anger, and red drips around him indicate spots of blood. You know, his eyes look blank, if anything, really confused. Cullen attracted a lot of controversy when he said that in making these portraits he felt sorry for the perpetrators. These poor buggers, he said, you know, they haven't got a clue. I think that most people inside should be in hospital. This is typical of how challenging Cullen's work can be. He refused to categorise and judge these people as exclusively evil. He wasn't glorifying Travis, nor reviling him. He was more interested in isolating these images so that they can be seen in a new light.
Art making for me has always been a pathological thing. I just have to do it. I mean, art just isn't about something that you do for a job. It's actually a 24-hour-a-day preoccupation.
But this is no damaged soul finding catharsis in other people's pain. Adam Cullen enjoyed a perfectly adjusted childhood in the Sydney beachside suburb of Collaroy, surfing and drawing cartoons for the local paper. His father was a builder and teacher who studied flamenco guitar, and his mother a potter and actress. His time is split mostly between his home in the Blue Mountains and the great urban sprawl of Sydney, providing gravitas to his exploration of our urbane existence. In retreat within his studio, Adam can find peace amidst the gentle flow of the bush, in contrast to much of the angst processed onto his canvas. Much more than just a modern-day Nolan, Adam Cullen is one of the few truly Australian artists exploring the Australian identity through many of its hidden and unopened doors. This is a man equally placed in engaged discussion with Edmund Capon, or down at the pub with Chopper Read.
His painting style is very interesting, and it's probably unlike any other artist that I've known. I mean, his work has been described as crude and distasteful and grotesque, and his style very simplistic. But there's nothing simple about his work. It's actually disturbingly beautiful. There's a considered approach to his work. He's an intellectual, he's a sophisticated thinker, but he's also merciless with contempt as he depicts the issues that surround him.
His work appears spontaneous, but there's a wonderful painterly quality to the work. There's a beautiful line, a lovely gesture, an economy of line. He's a chronicler of contemporary life, and he's examining a part of our life, the underbelly, if you like, of our life, which very few Australian artists at this time are investigating in their work. It may appear to be spontaneous and gestural, but it is a very considered work. Every mark has its place in the composition.
I've always been attracted stylistically and almost emotionally to what paint does, and its fluidity and its psycho-viscous nature. It sort of almost has a sort of central nervous system of its own, like you sort of open up the can and there's this sort of, there's almost a potential humanness in there. Also, this action, this way of dealing with language, with paint, I've found almost a sort of a kind of neurotic alchemy of coping. Like I've sort of always seen art as sort of a form of pain relief, like palliative care, all that kind of stuff.
Most recently, the expression of pain is through a sense of hopelessness or failure of his subjects. The impotent clown or Ned Kelly in a nightgown being visited by a constable. Drips find their way into his works as tears or drops of blood. And we see physical pain, the deterioration of bodies, entrails of bodies. You know, you get the feeling with his work that the message is we're alone on this earth and we're suffering in our own little bubbles, and really there's not much more to look forward to except further decomposure.
Yeah, I suppose I'm rather interested in how we experience loss and what is displaced through pain. Also, I've always thought that happiness is merely the absence of pain.
In Adam's work there is a humour about it, a sense of humour, but his work transcends that sort of schoolboy humour, going on to a very personal and private visual language. It's a very sophisticated way of expressing what he's looking at, and it continues on from there with this beautiful use of line, this wonderful sort of strength of fluidity in his work with these black, bold lines.
Humour is something I really love about Adam's work. In some of his paintings you can trace the way he gets involved in his own jokes. He uses paint to tell jokes. In the painting The Mayor of Kildare we see Cullen in a clearly mischievous mood. There's a proliferation of drips coming out the back of the horse to suggest a fairly base kind of toilet humour, and the horse is wearing a vivid shade of eyeshadow. I love that Adam can create a piece of contemporary art that can have a 6-year-old in stitches. Part of his freshness and spontaneity in his work comes from his own preservation of this childish spirit that can delight in disgusting things our bodies do. Humour in his work also functions as a diplomatic aspect. He's not the sort of artist who makes work that's like a jigsaw that needs to be unravelled. In making work with a very baseline sense of humour, he's appealing to a lot of people. He's an absurdist. He filters everyday life through humour. Part of the reason he's so funny is that he's an excellent observer. It's funny because we recognise something that is freshly articulated. It's a relief when we laugh.
Adam Land is always unpredictable. I don't really make plans. I mean, I don't really look that far ahead in terms of what I'm really going to do. I mean, I really only think in terms of the work I do. So I sort of oscillate around the work. I mean, I don't really take myself all that seriously, but I do take the work. Yeah, I mean, art is big and I'm small. So Adam Land oscillates around the work that Adam does, I suppose.
I do think that the value in being is that we only are ultimately what we do leave behind. So hopefully I can leave a solid body of work that spans my entire life, signifying the time that I wasted here.
Yo!